Hey kids, it's Jurassic James and it's Jurassic Explains. We're looking at Edmontosaurus. There's a lot to unpack. I'm going to keep it real short. Same rules apply, older models to newer models this way. So let's get started. So the animal known as Edmontosaurus, the genus known as Edmontosaurus, has two species, regalis and annectens. And I'll go over in more detail why and how and all that. But the first thing I'm going to point out is back in the 90s, when I was a kid, you go to the grocery store or a dollar store. There's a pack of dinosaurs for sale, and this is not my first member of this group. That original figure is long gone, but the idea is that's the same make and mold. And so when I found this thing, it was considered a genus named Trachodon. Now, do know Edmontosaurus, as we know it, was officially named in 1917. That's the type species. But the parts we know of Edmontosaurus were been found before that. So they were actually found during the Bone Wars. But it was really before we understood what Hadrosaurs or, quote, duck-billed dinosaurs were. So there's a lot of names to float around. And if the video were to be an hour long, I would go over all the names, changes, and who and all that. The high point is, this thing is called Trachodon at the time as a kid. Now, here we have the larger figure, and one thing to point out with the Hadrosaur duck-billed dinosaurs, a very common feature, is they have 3 toes, and they have 4 digits. Now, if you think about the hands, or 4 limbs, we imagine, if you picture like this, the thumb spike, if seen in Iguanodon, their cousin, they have 3 toes to walk on. So they have 3 toes they walk on here. The pinkies for grabbing leaves or helping feeding. But this little thing here is found only in Iguanodons. In Hadrosaurs, they have no first toe. So there's only 4 digits. When you see it like this, that's an Iguanodon. When you see it like this, it's not, it's a Hadrosaurus. So this guy has 3 fingers, but the problem, of course, is it doesn't have this one here. Now, I will point out that this is an older model, so therefore the idea is they didn't fully understand how their anatomy worked. In fact, when they first started finding skin and skin bits, there would be skin between the fingers. So the assumption was they had web toes for swimming in the water. Also, when the earlier specimens were found, Cope, paleontologists, thought that their teeth and jaws are very weak, so they only eat soft water plants, which is why Ducky and Lambe over time, different species, but Ducky is always eating water plants. That's a kind of an old idea. In fact, Hadrosaurs have an amazing row of teeth called a tooth battery, where we have teeth along here, so we're like chewing like this. They have 1 row here, 2, 3, 4, and 5 like that. So it's really way more advanced, way better for chewing actually. But anyway, so you have your Trachodon here. This guy, general design of the time before, early 1900s. Here is a smaller model from a smaller pack. It's the exact same mold. So this got the same thing, but a little bit smaller. If you go to modern dollar stores and get the little, very thin, small packs or groups, you get these little guys here, 1 of 10, 1 of 20, right? Go to Amazon, buy the whole bunch of pack of tiny dinosaur toys. But again, the term duckbill is most associated with this genus. Now, in fact, there's one named Anatotitan, well, formerly named Anatotitan, which Anana means duck and Titan means giant. So the name is giant duck. So here we have, I would say, these are Edmontosaurus skeletons. You go to like $1.25, you get little skeletons like this. Obviously, it should not be walking like a kangaroo. It should be walking like this, but whatever. This one, of course, another one of those multi-pack figures you get. It does have 4 fingers, but the 4 fingers are like this. They should be like this. And these 3 here, that's the first one, the second, third, and 4th finger should be, we count going in. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going out. And so there's no thumb, no first toe, and these are actually encased in what's often called a mitten of skin. So if you look at it, it's almost like a hoof, and they're all together. And of course, the pinky's out to the side. This guy has a hand like kind of like I mean, it's not a human hand, but they have like the 4 fingers are all the same size. That's not how it works. This one's way shorter, right? 3 toes, that's pretty good actually. And overall, they're missing, the major thing is their tail. They should have much thicker and longer tails because when you look at a tail of an Edmontosaurus, there are the main vertebrae that are lined up. And then going up, jutting up are neural spines, and jutting down are chevrons. So the tail is very broad and wide, which you see in better later figures, but in the earlier ones, they're really just a tripod for standing up. Now, speaking of Anatotitan, here is my only official, this is a 2004 safari. It was a very rare specimen, an Anatotitan, and that is because an Anatotitan was once its own genus. The hands look amazing, the feet look amazing. It's a very good model. It's one of those scientific grade models from, I think, Safari, correct? So let's see, Safari, yeah, 2004. And so if you ever saw Walking with Dinosaurs, the original with the documentary from the BBC, British Broadcasting Network, or company, the Tyrannosaurus Rex comes and kills one, that's an Anatotitan. Now, since then, an Anatotitan has been argued to be actually a part of the genus Edmontosaurus. So you won't go out and see this toy for sale other than like eBay or something. And so it's very, very rare because that genus is technically a dead genus. It's been absorbed into another group. Now, next we have what I would consider the official like Edmontosaurus figures that are known as Edmontosaurus. There are two species. One, regalis and annectens. And so here we have the one that, this is like my, not scientifically, but kind of a gold standard for its time. When I first got this figure, I was so happy because, I mean, sure, it's not standing up. I mean, they could rear up, but again, it should be like this. In fact, it should be like that. But again, those are large Edmontosaurus. So an animal like this isn't very well known, or it is, but it's not. It's in like, there's even one in Jurassic Park 2. When they go to the T-Rex nest, there's an Edmontosaurus skull there. So it's there on the island, but you don't see them very often because they don't have these huge horns and crests. They don't have spikes and things. So people don't associate them being a super exciting dinosaur. But they're kind of like the wildebeest of their time. More on that later. But the idea here is that this guy's hand is more accurate to, this is the 1997. So kids, this is from the last century. Now the idea here is that this guy has the three fingers going down and a little side finger. So that at the time was accurate to our understanding for the most part. The toes are pretty good in general, but again, it should be like this. But overall, looking at the shape of the crest, the eyes are here, the nostrils there. The beak, when you look at the beak, when you hear the term duckbill, they have this big flat white bill. But do know in life, for Stegosaurus, for Triceratops, for these guys, whatever beak you see there in the museum on display, do know there was a covering of keratin, making them longer than this. So think of your fingernails and your hair, that hard material, but really, really compacted, and that makes it sharper and longer. So this bill, I would prefer if it came out more and was more flat like that. And I'll go over feeding and all that in a minute. This is my next largest of this group. It's made in China in 1991. There's no company. The hands, same, actually 1997 or 1? Yeah, 1. So this figure actually, 1991, it's older. And so again, before this guy, this is the most accurate one that I knew of. Its hands are, in fact, not only are their four fingers are equal size, they are getting smaller, but it's not exactly what it should be. It should be like this, this to walk on, these to grab like that. This is more like that again. But overall, the feet are decent. The tail, it should be thicker. It's long enough, right, in length, but it should be thicker than that. More muscle, more attachment points. And the beak is more like rounded off. It should be more flat in the front. If you go to Museum of Natural Science, they have two Edmontosauruses, big flat bill. As far as smaller figures go, now, when I was a kid, I would buy these tiny figures, and they would be like little babies. Honestly, to be a baby dinosaur, you'd have to have big eyes and tiny noses. And so this is probably not intended, but I would say this is the closest to an Edmontosaurus baby. What's cool is that this little guy, oh my goodness, it doesn't say a company. I can't see a company. This is China. But it says Edmontosaurus on the nose, which is really cool. And so this is the one that's actually a tiny one that's actually labeled, which is really neat. I don't remember where I got it. This is like an older model, but it's still there. Walking with Dinosaurs, the documentary, then there's Walking with Dinosaurs, like in 2000 something. That's like they're talking. There's kind of like Land Before Time-ish, but they have like live action looks. This is from that figure. So this is at the time a very accurate Edmontosaurus to the 2000s. I wish they made figures like this, like this size. But again, the Anteater species is just not as popular as Regalia. But overall, you see all the main parts. Now, if you watch Walking with Dinosaurs, it's really cool. The main characters, or the main character actually, is a Pachyrhinoceros. But there's this one scene when he's like a juvenile or young with a friend and a bird, and they're all talking, and they're on the beach and are lost from their main herd, and you hear this really cool song playing, and it shows these Edmontosaurus. They're really large animals. They're really, they're over 30 feet long. And so the way they kind of depict them, how they move, is really cool. Even though it's a movie for like kids and stuff, it's a really good interpretation of the animal. As far as official best example of this species, we have this 2010 safari. So here is a pretty good, it's not the best, but it's a pretty good example. I'm pretty sure PNSO makes one or two or something. But the feet, again, the toes are kind of splayed out, but they're in right proportions. The fifth toe is way smaller than the first three, 2, 3, and 4th. So that's really good overall. The feet are kind of spread out a little bit more. We do know from Hadrosaur footprints, they have really big padded feet. So when you see an elephants actually walk on their tippy toes, and there's a big pad behind it for cushioning when they're walking. And we see that in Hadrosaur's footprints. Probably not as advanced as an elephant, but it's still there. But overall, I like the fact that the tail is thicker, it's larger. Now what's really cool about this is right there, you see this little bump right there. That is where the hip bones, you have on top of the hip of the dinosaur, we have the ilium. Going backwards, it's the ischium. And so the ischium points backwards, which is why we always draw the animals or make models like that, because that's where this bone is sticking to the point. And we know the animal's torso is at least that large. And what's really neat about this, when you see a horse or a cow, their main guts are between their arms and legs. They're right here. So usually they bulge out. With hadrosaurs, what's really neat is the guts go actually kind of between the legs like that. So they're still trying to scrape as much nutrients as possible out of their meal. Why that's so important, we think about vegetation like fruit and vegetables of today. If you even look back 400 years ago, the fruit and vegetables we eat today weren't as large and lush. We have been breeding them to make them more fleshy, more, juicy or whatever. And so they're eating things even more primitive, even more simple. And so these are animals eating very poor, by today's standards, poor quality food, and they're trying to break it down even more. So that's enough for this guy for now, and we move on to regalis, who is the star of the lineage now, and again a type species. So regalia, think regalia, very pretty, very ornate. They have this little comb here. You're like, comb, what is that? Not a comb for your hair, but roosters have like this kind of extra skinny flesh thing on top. That's called a comb. These guys have it. Now, I know when I was young, a student looking up this species, I remember saying, how would you know because we have dinosaurs like Hadrosaurs or Anatotitan who have hard crests that are made of bone, and this is supposed to be all flesh. So like, how do you know that? And then I looked at the skeleton in the paper, and it's like right there, this slab of rock with the comb clearly right there. It's not questionably, it's attached to the head. It's clearly some kind of ornamental display. We do not know if it is a thing that the boys have, the girls don't, or vice versa. We don't know any of that, but we can say they at least some of them had this little fleshy pad here. Now, overall, this model is really special with this model is his feet are darn near perfect. That's the pad I'm talking about, the fleshy pad, that the skin kind of encased this. You say, how do you know that? We have found other Hadrosaur mummies. We have found so much skin preserved that we see how it's actually connected. And you can actually Google image some of this stuff and just get it in a random search. And so you can see where it's like encased in skin. There's no thumb and the pinky's out to the side. This guy shows that right there. The feet are pretty decent. And so we have Hadrosaur's toenails, so we know how their claws would have looked. So you have the core of the nail, there would have been a covering on it. So it would have been bigger than what you see in museums, but the same overall shape. And so this one is, let's see, a 2020 Safari. So again, if you're looking for your scientific regalias, unless you go for a higher end model, this is your guy right here. As far as other models go, and there's these like, well, in Houston, there's Kroger's and Big Lots. I'm not sure what's all over the world or country, but it's like these kind of like other retail stores that are not Walmart and grocery stores. And so I found this very simple model of one. Now, the only problem I have with this guy, which is just a simple flat model, and when you open it up, the tail plugs in, the head does not move. The only problem I have with this guy, I also have with its mainline Jurassic World figure. The noises are all made up. So, for some reason, the Jurassic World line gives their hadrosaurs, their duckbills, not 3 toes, but 4. And so when you look at the feet of this animal, it's very upsetting because they should have, these 3 large padded, feet, and because they have 4 toes, they're all crammed together in these longer claws, which they do not have. And so the idea here is that we have this feature like that. Now, why does that matter to you and I? It's just not correct. Let's say you go to get a Barbie or a G.I. Joe, and it has like 6 toes. And you're like, it would look different. Same thing here for me, looking at these guys. Also, their hands. I just spent most of this video mentioning the hands look like this. These guys have 5 fingers, and so you can't quite see it on him, but there's a 3 main, which is good. There's one on the side, there's one on that side. There should not be the inner one. That should be waiting for him to finish. There should not be the inner one. It should only be the outer one like this. So for some reason, the Parasaurolophus, the Hadrosaurs, they seem to really hold on to this idea that Hadrosaurs had 4 toes and 5 fingers, which is incorrect and very upsetting. That being said, that is the overall view of this. Also this guy here, they're called Cretaceous cows. You're saying, James, why are you telling me that? I want you to stay right there. Let's see. Reach higher, higher, higher. So when people say Cretaceous cow, they're talking about this. I get it. They're bulky, they're long, they have these weird faces. But remember, cows are human bred, so they're not as smart as a wild animal. They have a cow ancestor, we know from the Ice Age. But the point is, this is what people think about Hadrosaurs, or Edmontosaurus in particular. But as far as big picture goes, we have 2 different species here. And again, I'm going to go over how and why that matters. I'm going to pick you, and then going to choose, I guess, you. and then put the rest of you in the corner, because right now we're looking at ecology. So the ecology, the environment. So it's important to understand that, like, for example, Allosaurus never ate a Edmontosaurus because Allosaurus lived in a Jurassic period, the late Jurassic period of America. You're like, wait, they're both, oh, why are they called Edmontosaurus? The genus Edmontosaurus means Edmonton lizard. It's in Canada, it's a town in Canada. So named after a location. So names like Utahraptor, Utahraptor, Metaburosaurus in Australia, they're often names of locations too, right? And so the idea here is that if you were, yes, Allosaurus from the late Jurassic is from North America, but these guys are from late Cretaceous North America. And so they wouldn't have seen each other. So within late Cretaceous North America, what will we see? Well, first of all, no, an ocean flooded into the area called the Dinosaur Sea. So North America was split in the continent at least 2, if not 3 pieces. But these are separated just by location, but also by time. And so what's going on here is that there's something called the Horseshoe Canyon Formation, which is, like, I know it's like 7 million years ago, down to like 70, I think 2 million years ago. And so it's what we consider mostly Canada today. And its predator for regalis would have been something called a Bertosaurus. Thank you, my friend Jim, for buying me this amazing peanut. So a Bertosaurus. I did a video on this. So a Bertosaurus would have been his main prey. He would have also lived with the, what we now know as a Trothraptor. I've only have Jurassic World versions of them, so the Trothraptor. The ones that chased them in Monaco, I think. And so, yeah, you can't even stand anymore. And so another Hadrosaurus found there is Hypacrosaurus. This is, let's see, a 2004 safari figure. So they were contemporaries. We have a little guy called Struthiomimus. If you saw Jurassic Park, and I assume you have at this point, if you're watching these videos. The thing that's running in the field with Lex and Grant and Tim, that is Gallimimus. That is their Asian cousin who's bigger. This is Struthiomimus. Struthio means ostrich. Mimus means mimic. The toy manufacturers collect A in the years 2016. So Struthiomimus lived with this guy too. We have Pachyrhinoceros I mentioned earlier. This is a safari figure from 2014. So again, these are all contemporaries. There's also a guy named Euoplocephalus, which is a Ankylosaurus cousin. The name Euoplocephalus means well-armored head. I can't remember the year, but it's from Target. It's a company called Battan, B-A-T-T-A-N. 2016? No, that's not a year. Never mind. That's just random numbers. Cool. So this guy, and of course, this guy called Edmontonia. So these are all contemporaries in the same time period, same location. That's for Edmontosaurus regalis. For Edmontosaurus antinus, this guy living in the Hell Creek Formation, that's late in Cretaceous, and that is when you have your, it's not the scale, but your T-Rex, your Triceratops, your Torosaurus. The T-Rex is Papo, then put a year on it. The Triceratops is 1998 safari. The Torosaurus, which is a cousin of Triceratops, close cousin, is 2011 Torosaurus, which the company is Collect A. There's a Pachycephalosaurus here. This one is pretty accurate in my opinion. 2020 safari. We have the actual Ankylosaurus, the genus Ankylosaurus, which is 2018 safari. And then we have a more scientific, or more accurate Edmontonia from, this is only, it's a well-known dinosaur in paleontology, but not a well-known toy. It's from 2010, Collect A. And then we have finally Anzu, which is an Oviraptor cousin found in North America. And this is a safari as well, I think, oh my goodness, this painted really weird. 2016, 2015, something like that. And so that's Anzu there. And finally we have Quetzalcoatlus, this guy right here. This is a 2017 safari. So these guys are, so this one came first. So they're a little older in time, so these would be higher in the time period. Some can say, well, did regalis evolve into this? Not, we don't know that for sure. They share a common ancestor or share ancestry. That being said, we'll go over one more final concept with these animals, and then the video will be done. You can finally go home. Maybe you're already home. I don't know. I can't tell. I'm in the screen from the past. So, as far as ecology goes, and Hadrosaurs or duckbills in general, I want you to kind of frame it for you in your mind. So, first of all, they all look very similar to most people, and I get that, because they have very similar body types. The problem, of course, is they have different beak shapes and crest shapes. Some of them, like Edmontosaurus, don't have bony crests. Some do. The big picture here is, I want you to imagine ungulates, or hoofed animals. Say we're in Africa, and you go to North Africa, and you see this guy here. This is an aurochs, I believe. It's a 2006 safari aurochs. So that's found in the desert area. So you wouldn't see it in the African savanna like you see on Discovery Channel or National Geographic. here we have a water buffalo. And so water buffalo, of course, their names are derived from the fact that they are a buffalo. The horns are like that. They're not the ones from North America. Those are bison. These guys live in and near water. And in certain parts of Asia, some of their relatives will actually go under the water, just walk around the water. It's so weird to me to see this cow thing in the water. Then we have wildebeest who live in giant herds and migrate thousands of miles every year. And then we have antelope like this. And so these guys live all in Africa, but this one's found further north. So location matters. And then their lifestyles are very different. For example, these guys live in the water. Zebras, their distant cousins, live in herds with a male, like lions, they have a male, a bunch of females and their babies. Wildebeest have these giant herds, and these guys live in smaller herds, right? And so imagine how the duckbills, they have different shaped beaks, they have different sizes, different localities. They're still spread out. Some live together, some do not. And so my analogy of this is, this guy, for example, has a very narrow beak, or not beak, a very narrow mouth. And so they can eat and snip certain foods. The water buffalo has a more wide, broad mouth. The wildebeest is somewhere in the middle. So they're eating different plants. They're in the same environment for the most part, but they're eating different plants, right? And so the same thing can be applied to the Edmontosaurus, that these guys live in different regions or different times, and this Hadrosaur family lineage have different dietary drives, because you can have, carnivores are always competing for food, lions and leopards and cheetahs and poor cheetahs, and the other thing that they have in Africa, cheetahs, hyenas, and so in African wildlife, African wild dogs, they're all competing for the same kind of meat. But herbivores eat slightly different plants, so they're not exactly competing. Their competition comes only when they're eating or drinking water. You see them fighting in watering holes, but not really for food sources if they're herbivores. So that's what you're seeing happening here for the most part. That being said, that is Edmontosaurus in a nutshell. This video could have been an hour. There's a lot more going on here, but I wanted to not bore you to death and appreciate these two species of one genus. That being said, I'll see you next week.